and will always uphold law and order in the United States of America. The deadly incident that took place in Minnesota yesterday occurred as a result of a larger, sinister, left-wing movement that has spread across our country, where our brave men and women of federal law enforcement are under organized attack. Right now, immigration and customs enforcement officers are facing a 1,200% increase in assaults, a 3,200% increase in vehicle rammings, and an 8,000% increase in death threats. ICE agents are faithfully enforcing federal law to protect the safety of the American people by removing criminal illegal aliens from our country, which is exactly what nearly 80 million Americans elected President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance to do. Radicals in the Democrat Party are furious over this. They don't want our border secured or criminal illegal aliens being removed. As a result, Democrats are impeding immigration enforcement operations daily, creating extremely heightened and dangerous circumstances that make it nearly impossible for the men and women of law enforcement to simply do their jobs. Democrats are calling to defund federal law enforcement agencies who are protecting public safety. And Democrats are calling to abolish ICE and defund the police. That will never be allowed to happen under this president and vice president. The Trump administration will redouble our efforts to get the worst of the worst, criminal illegal alien killers, rapists, and pedophiles off of American streets. The Department of Homeland Security will continue to operate on the ground in Minnesota, not only to remove criminal illegal aliens, but also to continue conducting door-to-door investigations of the rampant fraud that has taken place in the state under the failed and corrupt leadership of Democrat Governor Tim Walz. Taxpayers have been ripped off to the tune of billions of dollars in this one state alone, and that is going to end, and people are going to be held accountable. The Trump administration has activated thousands of federal agents, doubled the number of U.S. attorneys in the DOJ office in Minneapolis, and surged resources to hold fraudsters accountable and demand justice for law-abiding American taxpayers and citizens across our country. And that's what brings the Vice President out here with me today to discuss all the Trump administration is doing and to make an additional important announcement on this front. So please, Mr. Vice President, will be joining us now.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And I want to echo some of what Carolyn said about what we're doing to combat the rampant fraud that exists in our immigration system, thanks to failed politicians and thanks to people who allow the American taxpayer to be taken advantage of for far too long. I think it's important to understand why this matters to the American people. I am a father of 3 young kids, a lot of kids, a lot of people in my generation. What is that going on there? Is that normal? Okay. CNN installed this broken camera just to throw me off my game, but it's not going to work. So here's the simple fact here. If you're a young parent struggling to afford childcare in the United States of America, there are programs that we have to make it easier for your kids to get in daycare, for your kids to get in preschool. Those programs should go to American citizens, not be defrauded by Somali immigrants and others. Make it hard for you to get the access to the resources you need. But number 2, making it easier for people who shouldn't even be in this country to fleece the United States and our taxpayers to begin with. We have actually activated a major interagency task force to make it possible to get to the heart of this fraud. We have Department of Agriculture resources that are focused on SNAP fraud, so that people who need food benefits can get them, but illegal aliens and other fraudsters don't. We have over 1,500 subpoenas that the Department of Justice has issued to get to the heart of the fraud ring. We've done almost 100 indictments, mostly Somali immigrants, but also a few others. And of course, we're looking in with broad investigatory authority to a number of the instances of wrongdoing that we've seen in Minneapolis. But we also want to expand this. We know that the fraud isn't just happening in Minneapolis, it's also happening in states like Ohio. It's happening in states like California. And so what we're doing in order to help coordinate this remarkable interagency effort from the Trump administration, but also to make sure that we prosecute the bad guys and do it as swiftly and efficiently as possible, is we are creating a new Assistant Attorney General position who will have nationwide jurisdiction over the issue of fraud. Now, of course, that person's efforts will start and focus primarily in Minnesota, but it is going to be a nationwide effort because, unfortunately, the American people have been defrauded in a very nationwide way. I want to thank a couple of people for their cooperation, in particular Pam Bondi, our Attorney General, first of all, for getting a lot of resources to Minneapolis to start to investigate and prosecute this fraud, really at an industrial scale. We've never seen fraud like this in the history of our country. Pam has been doing a great job to get the resources there to uncover it, but importantly, creating a job like this often takes months, sometimes even longer. When we realized that we needed this Associate Attorney General position, Pam got this person up and running in about a week. We're going to make the nomination hopefully in the next few days. We'll obviously let you guys know who that is when we do it. I've talked to Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who has promised me swift confirmation for this official, but this is the person who is going to make sure that we stop defrauding the American people. And here's one final thing I'll say about this. I've heard a lot of people say that we need a special counsel to investigate fraud in the United States of America. I actually agree, and that's what this position does. It has all the benefits, all the resources, all the authority of a special counsel, but with two crucial differences. Number one, it will be run out of the White House under the supervision of me and the President of the United States. And number two, it's actually constitutionally legitimate. As you guys may know, the special counsel statute has some major constitutional questions. When we get the bad guys, we want to make sure we get them permanently and they don't have some legal technicality they can get out of, which is why we set it up as an Associate Attorney General. I'll take some questions, but I want to make just one final observation here. When I was actually walking out here, somebody sent me a photo of a CNN headline about what happened in Minneapolis. And this is the headline, I'm just going to read it. Outrage after ICE officer kills U.S. citizen in Minneapolis. Well, that's one way to put it, and that is the way that many people in the corporate media have put this attack over the last 24 hours. And I say attack very, very intentionally, because this was an attack on federal law enforcement, this was an attack on law and order, this was an attack on the American people. The way that the media, by and large, has reported this story has been an absolute disgrace, and it puts our law enforcement officers at risk every single day. What that headline leaves out is the fact that that very ICE officer nearly had his life ended, dragged by a car 6 months ago, 33 stitches in his leg. So you think maybe he's a little bit sensitive about somebody ramming him with an automobile? What that headline leaves out is that that woman was there to interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation in the United States of America. What that headline leaves out is that that woman is part of a broader left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and to make it impossible for our ICE officers to do their job. If the media wants to tell the truth, they ought to tell the truth that a group of left-wing radicals have been working tirelessly, sometimes using domestic terror techniques to try to make it impossible for the President of the United States to do what the American people elected him to do, which is enforce our immigration laws. The President stands with ICE, I stand with ICE, we stand with all of our law enforcement officers. And part of that is recognizing that you people in the media, not everybody in this room, but many people in this room have been lying about this attack. She was trying to ram this guy with her car. He shot back. He defended himself. He's already been seriously wounded in law enforcement operations before, and everybody who's been repeating the lie that this is some innocent woman who was out for a drive in Minneapolis when a law enforcement officer shot at her, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Every single one of you. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I wanted to read a quote from Tim Walz earlier today. He said, "When things looked bleak, it was Minnesota's first that held the line for the nation on July 3rd, 1863, and I think we may be in that moment now." Can you comment on his rhetoric and Mayor Jacob Frey and whether they want to see unrest in Minneapolis?
Well, it's very tough rhetoric from a guy who just quit because his fraudulent activities have been uncovered. Look, Tim Walz is a joke. His entire administration has been a joke. The idea that he's some sort of freedom fighter, he's not. He's a guy who has enabled fraud and maybe in fact has participated in fraud. That's what this new Assistant Attorney General position is going to find out. I don't care what Tim Walz says. I care about getting to the bottom of this fraud for the American people, and I care about enforcing the nation's immigration laws. That's what we're going to stay focused on.
Unrelated question here. I mean, Democrats have accused ICE of murder. They've said they're targeting Americans. They told ICE to get the F out of Minnesota. This is going to stoke the fire against ICE agents. And you're talking about ICE agents right now, being concerned about them. What, if anything, is the administration going to do to make sure these folks are protected during these protests? But also, should DHS sort of revisit their procedures here? I mean, nobody wants to see an American killed. Are there changes that need to be made to make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
Look, first of all, of course, nobody wants an American citizen to be killed. This is absolutely a tragedy, but it's a tragedy of the making of the far left. They have radicalized a very small segment of the population, taught them that ICE agents are engaging in wide-scale violation of people's rights. What our ICE officers are doing is deporting the millions of criminal aliens that were let in during the Biden administration. So number one, we have to say, as a matter of leadership, and I would appreciate if the Democrats would join me on this, let's be honest about the fact that we have way too many illegal aliens in this country. Our ICE officers should be supported in doing their job. You're trying to actually marshal the far left lunatic fringe to engage in doxing, to try to make it impossible for them to enforce the law, and in some cases actually to engage in acts of domestic terrorism against our law enforcement officers. When you talk about different plans, different protocols, different policies, I forget exactly how you asked the question. Here's the simple fact. What we're going to do is make it easier for the American People's Administration to enforce the American people's law. And that means that Democrats have to stop rallying the mob against legitimate law enforcement operations. And that means that we are going to get tougher, and that's what this AAG position is about. We're going to get tougher at the people who are defrauding the United States by inciting violence against our law enforcement officers. That's one of the things that we're going to do. We've already started that work at the Department of Justice. We're going to keep on doing it, and this new AAG position is going to kick that into high gear.
Vice President Vance, you just suggested that this woman who was killed, Renee Good, is part of a broader left-wing network. Who do you think is behind this broader left-wing network?
Well, it's one of the things we're going to have to figure out, but here's the way that I put it. When somebody throws a brick at an ICE agent, or somebody tries to run over an ICE agent, who paid for the brick? And who told protesters to show up and engage in violent activity against our law enforcement officers? You see, just with this most recent terrible incident in Minneapolis, you see friends of this woman's or other people who are eyewitnesses saying basically that she was there to engage in obstruction of a legitimate law enforcement operation. How did she get there? How did she learn about this? There's an entire network, and frankly, some of the media are participating in it, that is trying to incite violence against our law enforcement officers. It's ridiculous, it's preposterous, and part of our investigatory work is getting to the bottom of it. Who's funding it, who's supporting it, who's cheerleading it, and of course, if there's illegal activity related to that, we're going to get to the bottom of that and prosecute it where we can.
Vice President, thank you for taking questions today. Is there a risk with you describing her as a deranged leftist, talking about very specific facts of these events, when an investigation is just beginning? Are you preempting a thorough investigation by drawing such conclusions? And have you received any information beyond the videos we've seen publicly about this individual, her specific acts, that has informed your point of view?
Well, first of all, the Department of Justice is going to investigate this. The Department of Homeland Security is already investigating this. But the simple fact is, what you see is what you get in this case. You have a woman who was trying to obstruct a legitimate law enforcement operation. Nobody debates that. You have a woman who aimed her car at a law enforcement officer and pressed on the accelerator. Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy, while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making and a tragedy of the far left who has marshaled an entire movement, a lunatic fringe, against our law enforcement officers. I think what is clearly happening here, and it's going to keep on happening unless the Democrats wake up and say, you know what, you don't have to agree with our immigration policies. You don't have to agree with what the president or the vice president believe about immigration enforcement, but why don't you take this to the ballot box? Why don't you vote? Why don't you organize? Instead, what some of them are doing is encouraging people to get violent with our law enforcement officials. It's disgraceful, and it's got to stop.
Yeah. Just to follow up on that question, and again, thank you for taking questions, Mr. Vice President. There's clearly a lot of emotion in Minnesota, across the country, over this incident. You're calling Renee Good a deranged leftist. There's been heated rhetoric that we've also heard from officials. What responsibility do you and the president have to diffuse some of the tension that we are seeing play out in Minnesota, bring down the temperature as this investigation is unfolding?
What we have a responsibility to do is to protect the people who are enforcing the law and protect the country writ large. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, you deserve to have the people's laws enforced in the United States of America. Now, again, I'm not happy that this woman lost her life. I'm not happy that this woman was there at a protest violating the law by interfering with a law enforcement action. I think that we can all recognize that the best way to turn down the temperature is to tell people to take their concerns about immigration policy to the ballot box. Stop assaulting and stop inciting violence against our law enforcement officers. That's the best way to take down the temperature. And we're not going to give in to terrorism on this. And that's exactly what's happening. People trying to antagonize, to commit acts of violence. They throw bricks at them. Sometimes they shoot at them. Sometimes they dox them. Sometimes they go to their place of residence and harass their families. This is classic terrorism. And we cannot say that when a far left fringe is inciting violence against our brave law enforcement officials, that we're no longer going to enforce the law. That's rewarding the very people who are engaged in this garbage. The actual reward that they just got is a new assistant attorney general who is going to prosecute and investigate this stuff even more aggressively than before. Yeah.
Thanks for taking my question. So the head of Minnesota's investigations agency says that the U.S. Attorney's Office has essentially cut off the state investigations agency's access to the investigation. What is the precedent for that, and why shouldn't the Minnesota officials on the ground have access and evidence to work on this investigation?
First of all, I wish the state officials in Minnesota would investigate why you have so many people who are using their vehicles and other means to actually interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation. The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy's protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job. The idea that Tim Walz and a bunch of radicals in Minneapolis are going to go after and make this guy's life miserable because he was doing the job that he was asked to do is preposterous. The unprecedented thing is the idea that a local official can actually prosecute a federal official with absolute immunity. I've never seen anything like that. It would get tossed out by a judge. So what I'd like Minnesota to focus on is the real issue that they're encouraging people. Minneapolis officials are encouraging people to commit violence against ICE officials. It's ridiculous. It's got to stop. Go ahead.
Mr. President, thank you. You said earlier that there's a left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and make it impossible for ICE officers to do their job. You told my colleague just now that there's an investigation going on into that network. So if everything that you say is true, how does being part of that network justify being shot?
Well, being part of the network doesn't justify being shot, but ramming an ICE officer with your car, that's what justifies being shot. It's not a good thing, by the way, but when you force somebody to engage in self-defense, it's almost a preposterous question. I'm not saying that funding some of this stuff justifies capital punishment. Nobody would suggest that. The reason this woman is dead is because she tried to ram somebody with her car and that guy acted in self-defense. That is why she lost her life, and that is the tragedy. Now, there may be other violations of the law and other penalties that are associated with those violations of the law. For example, if you are funding violence against our law enforcement officers, I'm not a prosecutor. My guess is that's not the sort of thing that earns capital punishment, but it should sure as hell earn you a few years in prison if you're funding the effort to try to assault our law enforcement officers. What is it? I'm sorry, guys. What's going on here? You guys are meant to report the truth. How have you let yourself become agents of propaganda of a radical fringe that's making it harder for us to enforce our laws? You just asked me a question that presumed that the reason why this woman died is because she was engaged in legitimate protest. She tried to run somebody over with her car, and the guy defended himself when that happened. Next question.
The investigation is still ongoing.
I said next question.
But Mr. Vice President, I mean, you presumably watched the video yourself. There's not the slightest doubt in your mind, having viewed it, that the victim, you still believe that she deliberately tried to ram him despite seeing this video.
Look, I don't know what is in a person's heart or in a person's head, and obviously we're not going to get the chance to ask this woman what was going on. What I am certain of is that she violated the law. What I'm certain of is that that officer had every reason to think that he was under very serious threat for injury or in fact, his life. What I'm certain of is that she accelerated in a way where she ran into the guy. I don't know what was in her heart and what was in her head, but I know that she violated the law, and I know that officer was acting in self-defense. It raises an interesting point, though. Look, if people want to say that we should have a legitimate debate about, what was she really doing, right? Was she panicking when she drove into this officer, or was she actually trying to ram him? That's a reasonable conversation. What's not reasonable is for so many of you to plaster all over the media that this was an innocent woman and that the ICE agent committed murder, which is what many of you have said explicitly and some of you have said implicitly. That's what I have an objection to. The idea that this was not justified is absurd, and I think everybody knows it in their heart. Yeah.
Mr. Vice President,
And the green jacket.
taking down the temperature. It seems like political violence is ratcheting up and riots could be around the corner. What steps does the administration have planned to try to unite America? Average people on both political sides are so tired of fighting with each other, and I think all the journalists in this room could agree with me that we don't want to be part of the problem. Do you have any words to unite America?
I know you don't want to be part of the problem, and I think that's true of a lot of you. I'm not sure it's true for everybody, because the reporting over this has been one of the biggest scandals I've ever seen in media. I've never seen a case so misrepresented and misreported when you have a guy who is defending himself and is now being treated as some sort of federal assassin by so many of the people in this room. First of all, let me say about crime. You mentioned violence. One of the things we're proudest about is that you saw violent crime over the last year drop by 20%. Why is that drop by 20%? Is it because we're attacking our law enforcement officers, or is it because we in the administration are empowering our law enforcement officers to enforce the law? I think that's one of the ways you take down the temperature, is you make people feel more secure and safe in their person and property. That's why we care so much about protecting our law enforcement, because it accrues to the benefit of the entire national community. I think that we can absolutely talk about the ways in which we can lower the temperature by discussing differences in a reasonable and rational way. Again, I'm happy to talk with any congressional Democrat or any of you about our immigration policy, about why I think it's necessary, about why I think it's in the best interest of the country, about why the President of the United States was elected to actually enforce the border for the first time in at least 4 years. So here's the problem. That's not the debate so many people are having. They are actively covering for people who are committing acts of violence against federal law enforcement. It is preposterous. The way to take down the temperature is to stop it. Have your debates about policy. Attack me. Attack the President of the United States. Don't attack our law enforcement officers. They are trying to do the job the American people demanded that they do. That they are not policy actors. They are enforcing the law. They should be treated with a modicum of dignity and respect. And the fact that they're not is why incidents like yesterday happened. The one final point I'll make about this is, look, there's a part of me that feels very, very sad for this woman, not just because she lost her life, but because I think she is a victim of left-wing ideology. What young mother shows up and decides they're going to throw their car in front of ICE officers who are enforcing legitimate law? You've got to be a little brainwashed to get to that point to where you're willing, not just to protest, that's fine, not peacefully protest, but throw your vehicle in front of legitimate law enforcement officers and drive your car into them. To get to that point, you have to be, I think, radicalized in a very, very sad way. I certainly wish that she hadn't got there. I know there's an ICE officer right now who very much wishes he was not put in the position where he had to fire a gun to defend his own life. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. What's your message, following up on that, what's your message to the leaders in Minnesota, the governor of Minnesota, the mayor of Minneapolis, to calm down the situation on the ground, on the streets? What's your message also to those protesters who saw that video in a completely different way than you saw that video?
Well, first of all, I think if you watch every angle of that video, there is one angle where if you squint, you can maybe tell yourself that it's not clear what happened. But when you look at all angles of that video, it is very clear that her vehicle went right for the guy. She actually collided with him. And then that's, of course, when he fired his shots. That's obvious, okay? So what I'd say to the protesters is, by all means, protest peacefully, but make this about ideas. Make this about disagreement with our policy. Don't use your protest as a justification or an encouragement for people to go and incite violence and participate in violence against our law enforcement officials. To the people on the ground in Minneapolis, meaning the local officials in Minneapolis from Tim Walz on down, I'd say, look, why can't you just disagree with a given piece of immigration policy without turning law enforcement into the enemy? And think about, for example, a criminal law where a police officer goes and arrests somebody because they violated a criminal law. If you're mad about that, go and protest the politician who passed that law. Don't attack the police officer who's just doing their job. We had a wide open border under Joe Biden. I happen to think it's a good thing the President of the United States has closed it down. If you think that's a bad idea, criticize this administration for a policy decision. Don't attack our people for enforcing the law, because I guarantee you go to ICE, there are black people and white people, there are Democrats and Republicans, there are patriotic Americans who are trying to enforce the law. Attack me, lay off of our ICE agents. Yeah, in the blue, all the way, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice President. You called on Tim Walz to resign. Can you lay out the case as to why he should step down?
Well, look, I think Tim Walz should resign because it's very clear either that he knew about the fraud in Minneapolis, he knew about the welfare fraud, or at the very least he looked the other way. I mean, this is not like Lex Luthor, right? This is not movie villain fraud. This is the lowest IQ possible fraud. This is, we're going to take the absence of kids and set up a daycare center where there are no children, and we're going to call our early childhood education center the Quality Learing Center. By the way, if you can't spell learning, maybe you shouldn't be in early childhood education. But people got rich off of this. We know that there were schools who either had no enrollment or at least they overstated their enrollment. Tim Walz, either it was unbelievable incompetence or he was in on the fraud. That's one of the things we're going to get to the bottom of. Sir.
Mr. Vice President, can you explain the difference between this Associate Attorney General and a special counsel? And do you envision this being a permanent position or having more of a limited scope?
Well, it's going to be permanent until we get to the bottom of what's going on, so I think it's going to last for at least the remainder of the administration. What's different about it from a special counsel is, if you remember, the Jack Smith case where the special counsel was found unconstitutional, one of the big issues there is that that person was not an appointed person, completely aside from all the other issues that the person was a lunatic and that the case had no merit. There was a fundamental constitutional issue, which is that he had not been appointed by the president and he had not been confirmed by the United States Senate. An assistant attorney general, what that's going to allow us to do is appoint this person, have them confirmed by the Senate. That's one difference. The more substantive difference is that this person is going to be part of a very broad interagency White House that's being led from the President of the United States on down. And that's going to give them the resources, the access to material and information to make this person more effective. I think a lot of people have asked, how are you really going to get to the heart of the fraud? We've been asking ourselves that question for the past couple of months, and we think this is the critical piece at the Department of Justice to really ramp this fraud investigation into high gear. In the red tie, yeah.
Vice President Vance, I wanted to ask, what's your message to far leftist agitators who feel emboldened to obstruct ICE activity in Minnesota and around the country?
Well, I think they shouldn't feel emboldened because now they have an assistant attorney general who is going to prosecute and investigate their fraud and their violence more aggressively than it has ever been investigated in the United States of America. We are doing so much to try to find the financing networks and the domestic terrorism networks that legitimate this violence, that fund this violence, and then, of course, engage in the violence. These people should not feel emboldened because they have, for the first time, maybe in American history, an administration that is not going to tolerate political violence of any kind from anywhere. Yeah.
It's not clear today that the entire weight of the federal government is behind these ICE agents and this ICE agent in particular. There is still a federal investigation happening on the ground. Does that mean that they are not looking into this ICE agent at all? They are just focused on the woman who was in the car? What is the investigation if the federal government has already determined that its weight is behind this ICE investigation?
So what do you mean? When you say investigation, do you mean investigation of the shooting yesterday or of the fraud that's happening in Minneapolis?
Yesterday.
Okay, look, DHS, as I understand it, has an investigation already ongoing. I know that other organs of our government are looking at this. So yes, there's certainly an investigation that's happening right now. But as part of the broader fraud investigation, a lot of what we're doing with the Department of Justice has already started. We've got over 1,500 subpoenas. We've got people this morning, actually, we're going door to door to actually knock on some of these fraudulent care centers, these fraudulent social services organizations to get to the bottom of what's going on there. So the investigation in some ways has already been ramping up into the anti-fraud element for at least a few weeks. What we're trying to do is supercharge it and make sure there's a designated person within the Department of Justice who completely controls that particular focus. Yeah.
To follow up on that, Mr. Vice President, on the agent, is he still on duty or has he been placed on leave, on administrative leave? And what really was the target of the operation on Wednesday, of the ICE operation on Wednesday?
Well, first of all, it was a legitimate law enforcement operation. We were going door to door to try to find criminal illegal aliens and deport them from the United States of America, because if you come to our country illegally in violation of our immigration laws, then we have the mandate, and in fact, we have the legal duty to enforce those immigration laws. Whether he's been placed on administrative leave, I don't know the answer to that question. I'd refer it to the Department of Homeland Security, and they can follow up. I will say, look, I would appreciate everybody saying a prayer for that agent. Look, in the past 6 months, he has been hit twice by a motor vehicle. One time, the first time, it led to over 30 stitches and very serious injuries to his legs. This is a guy who's actually done a very, very important job for the United States of America. He's been assaulted, he's been attacked, he's been injured because of it. He deserves a debt of gratitude. And I think the media prejudging and talking about this guy as if he's a murderer is one of the most disgraceful things I've ever seen from the American media. Yeah.
Vice President, what is your specific role in the future of Venezuela? And I'm wondering, could you confirm reports that the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, was kept out of the planning for the operations because of her past concerns about military involvement in Venezuela?
So I've heard a couple of things. One, that I was kept out of the planning for the Venezuela operation, that's false. And another, that Tulsi was kept out of the planning for Venezuela operations, that's completely false. Look, we're all part of the same team. And one of the things that is really amazing about that operation is that we kept it very tight to the senior cabinet level officials and related officials in our government. And we kept this operation secret for a very long time. I'm very proud of that. I think it suggests that the team works very well together. Well, looking ahead, what is my role? Look, my role is going to be whatever the president asks me to do. Well, every single, or I should say every other day, I'm chairing the meeting that we do on this among White House principals to talk about next steps to try to ensure that Venezuela is stable. And as the president has directed us to do, to ensure that the new Venezuelan government actually listens to the United States and does what the United States needs it to do under our country's best interest. So I'm going to be as involved as the president wants me to be. So far, that's been very involved, and I'll keep on doing that so long as the president asks me to do it. The purple.
Yes, even beyond the war powers.
Right, we'll go purple and then we'll go pink, whatever that is in front.
And then beige. All right.
Okay.
Are there any indications, you talked about the network, are there any indications that the lady who was shot, I know there are different reports from there, her wife said they were new to the area. Are there any indications she may have been a paid agitator, and maybe that there are others that were brought to the area, considering everything that's going on in Minneapolis?
I wouldn't say that she was paid. I don't have the evidence to say that one way or the other. What I do know is that she was violating the law. And if you just look at the eyewitness accounts, they were saying she was there to prevent the enforcement of the law. She was trying to obstruct a legitimate law enforcement operation. That much is obviously clear. The rest of it, of course, is part of the reason why we investigate this stuff. Yeah.
Vice President, even beyond the war powers resolution today, Congress has bucked President Trump on issues like tariffs. Are you concerned that President Trump is losing his grip on Republicans in the Congress, and what are you going to do about it?
No, I'm not concerned at all. First of all, we talked to some of the senators who were going to vote the wrong way, in my view, on this resolution today. Much of their argument was based more on a legal technicality than any disagreement in policy. If you look at the people who actually voted, every single one of them have supported the administration's plan. Second of all, as the president, I believe himself has already said, every president, Democrat or Republican, believes the War Powers Act is fundamentally a fake and unconstitutional law. It's not going to change anything about how we conduct foreign policy over the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months, and that'll continue to be how we approach things. Go ahead.
So we are seeing, regarding Iran, we are seeing the protests in Iran these days. The cities are begging for help from the U.S. and Israel, naming streets in the city after President Trump. It seems there is an opportunity here that may not come again. Will the United States by the citizens of Iran? And if Israel decides to strike again the nuclear sites in Iran, is the U.S. expected to take part?
Well, look, we certainly stand by anybody who's engaged in peaceful protests, anybody who's trying to exert their rights for free association and to have their voices heard. Obviously, the Iranian regime has a lot of problems. And as the President of the United States has said, the smartest thing for them to have done, it was true 2 months ago, it's true today, is for them to actually have a real negotiation with the United States about what we need to see when it comes to their nuclear program. I'll let the president speak to what we're going to do in the future, but we certainly stand with anybody across the world, including the Iranian people who are advocating for their rights. I'll take just a couple more questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Vice President. Concerning Venezuela, how would you assure the Caribbean region that they will remain a zone of peace? Because some member states in the region are concerned.
Well, look, the president had a very productive phone call with the president of Colombia yesterday, and we continue to talk at all levels of government with a number of our friends in the Caribbean region. I actually think this is really good for peace in the Caribbean, because when you take away a major source of illegal cartel revenue, which is the cocaine trade, the fentanyl trade, other sources of illicit revenue, you actually remove the power of one of the main destabilizing forces in Latin America and in the Caribbean. I really do think, look, we say it all the time, this is the president of peace. One of the ways that you establish peace in your own hemisphere is to make it clear that the United States is going to be respected, that the United States is willing to take power away from criminal cartel organizations and give it to legitimate governments. That's how we see the future of the Western Hemisphere, and we think it's going to be much more peaceful than it was certainly under Joe Biden. I'll take one more question. Go ahead.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. On Greenland, do you have a message for European leaders? Many in Europe reject the idea that the island could be for sale.
Well, first of all, Secretary Rubio, I believe, is meeting with the leaders of Denmark and Greenland next week, I want to say it is, but maybe it's the week after that. We'll continue to deliver some of these messages in private, some of them in public, but I guess my advice to European leaders and anybody else would be to take the President of the United States seriously. What has he said about Greenland? Set to the side the crazy overreactions that I've seen from the press and from certain people in Europe. What has the President said? Number one, Greenland is really important, not just to America's missile defense, but to the world's missile defense. Number two, we know that there are hostile adversaries that have shown a lot of interest in that particular territory, that particular slice of the world. So what we're asking our European friends to do is to take the security of that landmass more seriously, because if they're not, the United States is going to have to do something about it. What that is, I'll leave that to the President as we continue to engage in diplomacy with our European friends and everybody on this particular topic. And again, thank you all for listening. Thanks for taking questions. And I just ask you, look, this is politics, and often Republicans and get in arguments with the press about things. I understand that. I think it's really irresponsible for you guys to go out there and imply or tell the American people that a guy who defended himself from being rammed by an automobile is guilty of murder. Be a little bit more careful. We're going to talk about toning down the temperature, which I know the president wants to do, and I certainly want to do. One of the ways we tone down the temperature is to have a media that tells the truth. I encourage you all to do that. God bless you. Happy New Year, guys.
I don't know. Anyway, thank you to all of you that's joining Speak the Truth 2.0. My name is Cindy, and the Vice President said a lot. There's going to be big protests, I know, coming probably throughout the nation, especially in Minneapolis. People are having mixed opinions about it. All the Republicans, well, not all, but a lot of people are saying on the Republican side, or MAGA side, that ICE acted appropriately. The only thing that really bothered me is that this officer was involved in a previous incident with I don't know if it was a citizen previously, that he had an incident with someone ramming him with a vehicle. That officer, since he was traumatized, should have been on desk duty, and he should have been seeing a therapist or a psychiatrist. He should not have been there, because there were no other officers that pulled their guns. Now, they said from the film, and when you look at it, they have to do different angles, and they have to do an investigation. I think this is probably too soon for the vice president just to condemn the woman in one side. And I know the investigation is going to involve the actual actions of the officer. Now, we want to support ICE, but just like we want to support our police departments. But that does not mean that we have all good cops, all good ICE agents, all good law enforcement. Some of them shouldn't be in those positions. And this lady that has a family that's lost their mother, daughter, sister, aunt, cousin, the whole 9 yards, that family is grieving. Now, I don't know if she lived on this block. They said that she was on her street. Was she really trying to ram him? They're going to have to make that determination. But I think this is too soon to actually give a press briefing on the incident and then just say that it was her actions. Was she a United States citizen? Was she a citizen of the United States? It's a lot of stuff that's going on in Minneapolis. It's almost like they're under attack. We know, okay, they said about the fraud. We're hearing all the different reasons why they are there. I don't know how Nick Shirley got there, how he got this inside information. I know he's with TPUSA, so I'm quite sure that he's getting a lot of help from DC that sent him out there to bring justice, I guess, of the fraud that was going on inside of that daycare. But it has reverberated throughout the country. So the actions there are affecting of the rest of the country, which I don't believe that is fair to the rest of the United States of America. If you find fraud, then so be it. But to penalize everyone and make it difficult for everyone to get child care because of the actions of a few that all have to suffer, I don't agree with that.
She was a U.S. citizen.
She was a U.S. You got to talk over here.
Officer got trigger happy.
Yeah, the officer. So I'm hearing that she was a mother and a United States citizen. Now, did she intentionally do this? Or was she just trying to, because like when I looked at the film, there were other cars that were able to go by. And I don't know, how I don't know what happened. Was she just trying to hurry up and get around them? Because to get out of the area, they said she lived on a block. What skin in the game did she have? Was she an actual protester? See, they need to investigate all of these things before we can start condemning people. But when United States citizens are being shot to death, then it needs to really, I think it opens up another can of worms. Like, we have to be careful when we have people that are carrying out these official duties, that they are stable, that they are able to handle the pressure. He was pressured. Maybe he shouldn't have been out there.
It's not a good sign because he already went through something
similar
to this.
You have to come. Yeah, he shouldn't have been out there. If he had all these problems and he's already been traumatized, he wasn't the best person to be out there.
The wrong person power.
He shouldn't have been out there. It's inexcusable that he was out there, because he was the only one that pulled his trigger. He was the only one that felt threatened. He was the only one that was still suffering, rightly so, being traumatized by a previous incident. We don't need trigger-happy people out there. To me, that just makes it worse, because was he protecting himself or was he traumatized, period? They're going to have to investigate all of this. We want ICE to do their jobs. We don't want them shooting American citizens, and we certainly don't want ICE officers that are out there that have been traumatized, because then they're not able to handle the pressure. He wasn't able to act accordingly. That lady would still be alive today if perhaps he didn't previously have an incident that the vice president said that this guy, he was dragged, he had some stitches, and he had, went through something prior. Then now he got a body. Now she's unalive. So where are we at now? What is our country becoming? It's like, it's almost troubling because we got so much going on and it's like a tax. I'm like, okay, if you're not for the left, or you're not for the right, but the attacks on each side have escalated. And American citizens are caught in the middle. And it's like, what side are you going to take? Are you taking the right side or you're taking the left side? You know, are you in between? Or do you go along to get along? Do you stand for truth? Because you could be for a party, but that doesn't mean everything the party does is fine, that is okay. And I think that this particular incident needs to be thoroughly investigated because we don't want more of this happening. Because once you have one killing, and this was a United States citizen, this was not an illegal immigrant. You know, what skin in the game did she have with all of this when it wasn't a part of her life as far as we know? Because there's not enough information out there right now.
Pat, that's just your claim. You don't know that 100% is the truth that she was going after him. That's just your claim.
Well, they're saying, like the reporters were even saying, that when they looked at the film,
Yeah.
the film doesn't present what the vice president was saying, that the people have different footage of the incident. It has to be thoroughly investigated because for it to be peace. No justice, no peace. They're going to have to investigate it because it's alarming when United States citizens are being shot by ICE. And you have an officer that's out there that's traumatized. That doesn't work. It never works out well. He should have been on desk duty. He should not have been out there. That wasn't an assignment that he should have been involved with. Because he didn't know how to handle the pressure. Whatever was going on, you have to be cool, calm, and collective when you're dealing with protests, when you're dealing with people. And the temperature of this nation is like at its highest point. It's like all this inside fighting. The vice president can't not come out without demonizing half of America. That got to stop. Even if you vote Republican, I don't want to hear that every time. You demonizing, like if you voted Democrat, you're demonized. What is this?
Listen, everyone in the comments, you guys are all making assumptions. You don't know 100% that she was trying to ram her car at the officer. Like my mom said, they said the footage, it doesn't appear she was doing so. Everyone in the comments, you're just jumping to conclusions and making assumptions. You don't know. Neither do I. You're making assumptions.
Yeah, well, and that's why we have a justice system. That's why we have people that are going to thoroughly investigate. So right now, it's just all opinions. But I think that we need to just be on one page. I think that the officer, and you support ICE and the job, that we don't want ICE officers hurt. We don't want them threatened. We don't want all ICE officers being harassed or anything happening to them. They're doing their jobs. On the other hand, we don't want United States citizens as well catching a bullet. We don't want them enforcing the law that it gets to the point. Only thing this is doing is causing more people to boil over and more people to be outraged, and that's not good. Thank you. That's all it's doing. You know, this is like a Vice President Vance. He asked the media for them to stop reporting, but it's more like, listen to what I have to say, and you start reporting. But as reporters, they are going to report both sides, and we have to determine what we believe and what we don't believe, because it is false reporting at times. So only thing is so fresh and new, the vice president doesn't know what happened. He wasn't there.
How are we making assumptions where we're literally telling you not to make assumptions? That's like the whole point of the live streaming.
We have to be smart and we want the best, but we have a lot going. We just took over Venezuela. I mean, this is just a new year. Let's just recap. And what's this? The January the 8th? 8 days in, and I feel like we're imploding from inside out. I mean, good God. Happy New Year's, you guys. Happy 2026. I mean, this is just the first week of the new year. And we already have arrested President Nicolas Maduro, the Venezuelan president. We have removed him and his wife from his country. People say kidnapped, some people say arrested, and he's going to be tried here in the United States for his criminal actions. Now, the Venezuelan people, they're elated. They seem to be happy. I've never been to Venezuela. I don't know the type of president he was. I know that they've been suffering. I know there's been over 2 million people or more that have left the country. I know the interest rate and everything is like probably was the highest in the world. I mean, the country was failing. They went through a lot of sanctions, even from our country. So it was a lot of things that was going on. But we went in, and the people that were supposed to protect them, a lot of them lost their lives. Thank God none of our citizens lost, our soldiers lost their lives, but there were some injuries. So this is just the beginning of the new year. We have totally had captured another president from Venezuela. Now we're saying we're going to rule that country. We're going to run the country right now. And we are going to control their oil. Now, I was looking at it, if President Putin had did that to Zelensky and arrested him and said for his crimes that he's done, because they said that Zelensky, he's a dictator as well, and he's been committing crimes, then the EU and the United States would have imploded. We would have lost our minds. So I'm just saying, not saying like the people in Venezuela, they said that was great. They're happy. No one should rule a country for 25 years. He should have been out of office a long time ago, but I guess the way that it happened, people on the left, they do have a problem with the way that he was apprehended and what has happened. So now Trump is talking about Greenland. They're talking about, should we buy Greenland or take that over? Who knows? So this is just the beginning of the new year. Then on top of that, with the Somalians, like even the governor, they like he's running for his life. It's like Governor Walz, who I'm not a fan of at all. It's like he feels so attacked that he's dropping out of the governor's race. His state has been taken over by the federal government. You got ICE there. They had Nick Shirley going there, who supposedly, they helped him out. And he went in there and supposedly exposed about the Somalians having a daycare, one daycare. There wasn't people there, but now that has reverberated all around the country that everybody now is going to suffer with daycare.
Yeah, Dave, and Stranger. I guess you guys are happy that child is now without his mother.
It's terrible.
You guys can celebrate that just like JD Vance got up there and celebrated, and Karoline.
He had no compassion no whatever. That was a life that's gone. And American. See, I'm about America first. I'm about Americans. I'm about making it better for all of us. One nation under God. To me, when you hear American to be unalive by ICE, that doesn't sit well. And to find out that ICE officer should not have been on the street. He should have had desk duty. Because obviously he's still traumatized. And hopefully now they're not sending him back out there because he can't handle the pressure. He needs to be relieved of his duties at this point. Because if he's reacting, someone has lost their life by his hands. Now he has taken a life. So maybe this is not the job for him at this point. Especially without years of counseling. Because now it has escalated. And we need to bring the temperature down. But you can't bring the temperature down when the vice president is on TV and having a press conference condemning the woman and condemning, and he always referred to the left. It's not the left are United States citizens. They're not the left, they're United States citizens. And each election period, people vote for how they choose. They might have voted Republican this time, Democrat the last time. People are in between, and nobody should vote straight down ballot. You need to look at policy because they both parties have issues. Both of them have issues. But you should want a party that's going to best benefit your family and your country. That's what we want. But this family now is grieving. And the officer, he's still alive. He can be with his family. He said pray for them, but he never said pray for her family. Pray for her family. Her family lost a mother. Those kids are crying. Their mother is gone. I'd rather for whatever she did that she had a chance to go to trial, that she could go before a judge and let the judge carry out justice.
Well, I replied to you. Let me see if I find your comment. DH, I replied to you saying that mothers, you don't know their life situation. You don't know what their job is paying them. You don't know what medical they got going on. You don't know even where the husband or father is at. That some people have children, but they can't sustain the financial status that they need to provide for all of their children because the dad left. So you can't just put all the blame on the mothers. You know what he said?
No.
He said, why are mothers having children if they can't afford to pay for their children?
That's not even an issue right now because the way the economy, inflation is, most people are struggling.
Yeah.
So, and people are having kids, but not at the level that this government want people to have children, have babies. Okay, especially white women. They want them to increase their birth rate. But the thing about it, JD Vance, he didn't come out and say pray for her kids and her family. He was pressured by those reporters in there that kept asking him about the mother and about her. And he said, well, y'all should be praying for the ICE agent, what he's going through. And then later on, he said, well, yes, that was a horrible thing that happened to her. I'm not promoting that. I don't agree. That's when he went into that spiel. But he did not come out and say this was a tragedy, that this should not have happened. And, this was a United States citizen and pray for that family, or then say, well, maybe she shouldn't have been in her car or whatever she was trying. He could have maneuvered into that.
I've already
It's how you say things.
Well, I've already said it a number of times, but I won't be voting for JD Vance. I'll vote for a Democrat over JD Vance.
Yeah, it's how you say things. He could have circumvented another way and got his point across. The way that he did it, he should have said, like, she was a United States citizen. We don't want our citizens. That's not ICE job. We want ICE to be protected as well as they supposed to be protecting American citizens, to my understanding. And this shouldn't have happened. And we're going to investigate. We are going to look into it. We don't condone this type of violence. But the officer had already had this experience, and he felt like his life was threatened. So this was his response. If he kind of, put it maybe that way, at least that way.
I mean, Mom, but what do you expect? This guy said that you don't have to feel sorry about racism and slavery to people. It's like, what do you expect from JD Vance at this point?
It's just terrible. We got to do better as a nation. We can't, you're right. We can't be making excuses for people actions no matter what they do. It's like people are more devoted to parties than they are to Jesus. It's like, I'm not beholden to any man. I'm beholden to God. I serve Jesus. I don't serve man. Like, what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And that's why this is called Speak the Truth 2.0. That it's about, if you want to seeking the truth, that's this channel. Yeah. We support our government. We support our presidents. But that don't mean that the president is always right. That don't mean that JD Vance is always right. You got to support every administration. When they're wrong, call them the hell out.
Yes.
Call them out, for God's sakes.
Yeah, it seems like a black guy said JD Vance doesn't like us.
Yeah, he doesn't. He already made that clear.
Yeah.
I don't even know how he has an Indian wife, but oh well. Good luck with that 2028 run, JD Vance, because you know what, we see you. You know, when Trump ran, he ran. That's why he received votes from all ethnicities, because he didn't divide and separate, and at least he didn't show people intentionally if he was racist or prejudiced or whatever the case may be. This guy's out and out front. He feels emboldened right now. JD Vance feels emboldened. So go ahead, JD Vance. Do you, boo? Do you? Okay, you're gonna find out. Okay, you plan on running. Guess what? You're not gonna just win with Turning Point USA. You need America to vote for you. And right now, we not happy. Okay, you're not Trump. You're not Trump. So
these strains are your mother.
You're not Trump. And the thing about it is that the country is in such a turmoil that I have never seen before. Like the actions of our government, even with the National Guards, even with ICE, and it is not our government fault. What happened was that we had open borders. But we're supposed to be getting the bad guys out, not harming U.S. I believe U.S. citizens have gone through a lot. We've already been through a lot. From housing, inflation, interest rates, people coming to our country sucking up all our benefits, while we have American citizens that are out on the street right now that have served this country, and we still aren't helping. But we had taken in 14 plus million people and put them on welfare. Welfare, when we got $38 trillion debt that we can't pay, that now we're printing money. And everybody knows that the dollar is being devalued right now, and the rest of the world's buying gold. So we got a lot of problems going on that we're not even addressing, because this is not what this is about. But this is just a few days into the new year. For God's sakes, can we breathe? You people gotta realize that you should want what's best for you. Like if you want to be singular and individual, like you're gonna it's all about me. But guess what? You're not in a world by yourself. So what happens to your neighbor, what happens to other people, just like what happened to that lady, people are reacting. It affects all of us.
I mean, we're independent, so we're not for the Republicans or Democrats. We're independent.
Yeah, America spent all this time until we're bankrupt, because BOA, Bank of America, is closed, till we bankrupt, but nobody's coming to bail us out. Nobody's coming to pay out trillions of dollars worth of debt. We give all this aid around the world and come to everybody rescue. But when they had the Palisades fires in California and they still haven't rebuilt anything, who's coming to rescue our citizens? And who's going to rescue when we have hurricanes, our citizens? We had our citizens sleeping on the ground in tents.
Well, so our mod Pez Miko, there's going to be an investigation, but people have said that it appeared like she wasn't trying to ram into the officer, the ICE agent. But it's going to be an investigation.
They have a lot of footage. Yeah. And I just want our government to stop fighting against its people, because everybody's families have mixed people, even in races. But I'm saying as far as parties, you have people in your family that voted for Republicans and Democrats. And we got to stop the divide and do what's best for all Americans. We need people in office that stop trying to flame the fires that we are fighting against one another according to the party that you voted for. You can see me on video with Biden. I'm like, oh, thank you. Hey, Biden, thank you. I got everything with Biden, Obama, Bernie Sanders, Fitzpatrick, DiMaggio, Yang, all these different people. You know, I've been in the rooms with these people. I've had rallies with and representing hundreds and thousands of people, and has spoken at different conferences, all sorts of things. I'm in that political field. And when I vote from this point moving forward, and which I did the last election, I'm voting for what's best for my family and this country by looking at policy and seeing who's going to represent us the best.
Jeffrey, talking all cap doesn't mean you're right.
What they say.
Here's what I think what happened. So it's a theory. She made a left where the officer was. I think he may have thought she was trying to run him over.
That's what I think. I think because if you look at the video, I briefly looked at it. I think that's what happened too. I think she was trying to get around them. She was trying, actually, it looked like she was trying to get out of the way because there was some cars that went before her and she was trying to get out of the way. That's what it looks like. But that's why you have to have investigations. That's why I think that the vice president prematurely had done this press conference or press briefing when all the facts, and that's why the reporters were saying, how can you come out with this statement when there's an ongoing investigation? How can you say the things you're saying? How you making these statements? And that's what they were asking him. And he was like talking just off the cuff. And then he was like, I'm quite sure investigation is going to be done, but he's already planting the seed to be against the woman and before the ICE officer without the investigation. But it should be about the person that lost their life.
Dennis, everything my mom just said went completely right over your head, dude. You completely missed the point.
So there's a lot to the answers that we need. But when you do a press briefing prematurely without all the facts, that's why it's all over the place. And that's not going to settle the people because it's almost like they're being attacked. Minneapolis, it's like they're being attacked. We got so much going on, like all these different states. It's been like, I think that people are starting to feel like as Americans, like Americans are being attacked, not capturing the non-citizens. You don't even see that right now in the news. And sending them back to their countries. It's like Americans are inadvertently being affected by the actions of these ICE officers. And then look at the National Guard young people that lost their lives. And one young lady, she shouldn't even have been there. It's like all this fluff is going on and they keep talking about we're safer, but I feel like people are more, over the top now. People are on edge right now. They're unhinged right now. And we have to bring the nation together. And that's what the president of the United States has to do. That's his job. Trump has to bring the temperature down. Trump has to speak to American people. Trump has to do emergency break meeting or whatever and address the American people. Because it has to come from the top. He's the top. He has to make sense of everything that's going on inside of this country. It's a lot of news, a lot of stuff that's going on all at once.
Oh, Michael, that's just your theory and your assumption, dude. The officer was not the victim because you don't know if he was. You don't know what actually happened. Until the investigation comes out, we won't know. But it appears like she was trying to avoid him, not take his life.
Well, the thing that I think that it didn't help his case saying that he was already traumatized.
Yeah.
He already went through an incident prior to yesterday or the day before, whenever this happened, that his reaction was because of a previous incident that he experienced. And if he wasn't able to handle being out there on the field, he should have had a desk job. He needed therapy. And they certainly don't need him out there working after this. They need to retire him to the desk because he needs a lot of counseling because now he unalives someone. Now he's taking a life. So he doesn't need to be out there because out of all the officers that didn't experience what he experienced, he was the only one that took her out of here, had taken her out of here. So he wasn't fit for duty. That's how, at this point, going by what the vice president said, he wasn't fit for duty. He didn't have a cool head. Maybe, she should, whatever she had done, and I don't believe she had skin in the game as an American citizen, take her to court. Shoot her tires on her vehicle. Yeah. That's what you do. There's other ways to stop a vehicle. None of the other officers reacted like he did. That was an individual reaction to a threatening circumstance that he was unable to process with a cool head.
Well, it's like a lot of them get power hungry. Like, look at, not to make this about this subject, but look at all the violence that's happened to black
What
people.
Jack said.
You hear me?
Yeah, I know.
All the
They
violence that's happened to
desensitized.
black
They get
people.
used to the news. What did Jack say?
Power hungry.
What did he say?
Trump and JD.
Read it loudly.
Trump and JD, instead of saying we should wait for investigation, they decided
Yes.
to protect their own instead of trying to uphold justice. Exactly.
That's what we're saying, Jack. It's like we gotta. I think he did. This was a premature press briefing by the Vice President of the United States that all the facts are not in, and I don't think he's trying. I just think that he increased the flame on this. I don't think that he, took out the fire from this. I think his comments, and he was still condemning. They keep talking about the left. No, stop saying left when we have one president of all the people.
Well, T2, I see you're being sarcastic. So you think it was better for him to take her life than for him to handle it a more life-saving way that could have prevented a death? Like, come on.
This was an American citizen.
Yeah, come on, dude.
I think that kind of changed everything, that this was an American citizen. At least find out what had transpired. At least find out what her intentions really were. At least find out if he should have been out there in the first place, because he was not a lone ICE agent. If there were other ICE agents that did not have the same reaction that he did, that were standing there as well.
Because he was saying, oh, it would have took him so long to take her to court and stuff. So I'm like, you'd rather for her to die than for it to be handled the right way.
It's just that people have become so desensitized, and it didn't happen to them personally or one of their loved ones, and it's like, this is not common. We don't want to make it like this is something normal, because it's not. And it might be getting out of hand at this point, the things that are happening in these states. It's like, I've never seen so much turmoil ever. I've never seen all this before. It's like we're on the edge every day. Every day is something just over the top that's happening. And Americans, citizens, have different viewpoints and are trying to take it in. And guess what? We're not the only ones watching this fiasco. The world is watching us govern. The world is saying they're supposed to be about justice and peace, and President Trump is the president of peace, and they're saying that we try to tell other people how they should, conduct themselves and all of these things. But look at what we have become. We're becoming unrecognizable. We're supposed to be the world leaders, and we're unhinged like this. We have to do better. It's like you want to set an example for your children. We're setting an example for the rest of the world. They don't even want to listen to us any longer because they're looking at what's happening here. We don't even look at the stuff that's happening. We never had to have National Guards in different cities and arresting people because of, for whatever different reason, some for the color of their skin, some because they are non-citizens. I mean, we didn't have all of this. It's a lot. And coming in the new year, between Venezuela and what's going on with the Somalians and Minnesota, but now you're going to take it out on the whole nation? According to daycare, now you're going to put a clap. What's going on with this? You're trying to make it more difficult for women to go to work. Guess what, Mr. Vice President and President Trump? People need a 2-income household now. So when you try to take away that income, and for that woman going out to work because you want women to have more babies, guess what? That man can't hold it down by himself. because jobs are not keeping up with inflation. If you want to have a decent life, you need both adults working in that household. Both people need to work. So when you take away the affordability, or you take away a woman able to do daycare, especially say if the husband, if they separated, if they divorced, he's not paying child care, or unfortunately the person's unalive, or they're in prison and they're unable to take care of their families, then she's out there working. So now you're just making it more difficult for her to hold it down when she doesn't have support from a significant other. You just can't just sweep around the country with this bull crap. Anyway, there's a lot going on, you guys. Happy New Year's, everyone. Don't forget to please subscribe to my sports channel. I am going to upload a video on Speak the Sports. That's my other new channel called Speak the Sports, where I cover NFL football, college football, and NBA basketball. And I've only been doing this for like the last few weeks. So it's a brand new channel, but please subscribe to the channel. People seem to love it already. I'm getting like a lot of subscribers for a new channel. So I'm happy with that because I go in on football. I love football. Go Eagles. That's my team. Go Caleb Williams. I like him too. I like a lot of different football players, but that's my other channel. And I have one more called Pray Till All Here. I have to invest more into that channel. I have to manage my time. I got to ask God to help me manage my time so that I can, do everything that I love doing. I love doing this. I love speaking the word of God. I love sports, and I feel like it's important, regardless who you voted for, we need to be paying attention to what's going on inside of our country. And this is something I've been in politics, and been a legislative director, and all facets of different stuff in politics, but I wasn't still paying attention to policy. I was just focused on party. You vote according to party, and I was focused on that, but not any longer. Not any longer. Now I'm gonna look at what's going on and who's best for the office. And I don't want people coming in and they sell you a good, they sell you a good story, and then they get in and then they don't keep their word. They do the opposite, and they become, against the people, for lack of a better word. That now all of a sudden it's about them, and it's not about the people that they have been elected to represent. So it's about self-gain. When it become about self-gain and what can I get out of this, then we all take a backseat, and then they have all us, according to party, fighting each other while neither party are doing anything for the everyday American. That's what's been happening. They have us so focused on if you voted Republican or Democrat that you don't even realize that nobody's actually working for you. Working for you. The Democrats work harder for non-citizens. They don't even work for us. And then you got the Republican Party. They are more interested in the billionaires and the rich and all that. And now they've taken on some of the ways of the Democratic Party. They're about, they become about self-gain. And I'm seeing a lot that's going on that's never happened in this country. And a lot of it isn't good. It's not good, and it's not just the Republicans' fault. And quite a bit of it is the Democrats' fault because they shouldn't have opened up the damn border. So it's a lot that's going on, but we have to come together because you can't do anything about the past. So we got to continue to move forward. So anyway, you guys, thanks for joining us. God bless you. Have a great day. I don't know if Trump, if he comes on and speak, because I think at this point we need to hear from our president. He needs to address the nation, and that's what he needs to do. It was good. The J.D. Vance, I think that the statements he made was premature, that he shouldn't have been up there making the statements he made, because it has to be an investigation before any of us can pass judgment. So just to be clear, I'm not passing judgment on anyone. I'm staying neutral because I do not have all the facts. Once they, investigate and they give us the facts, then I will have an opinion. So anyway, you guys, stay Stay blessed. God bless you. Pray for your children. Pray for your president. Pray for this nation. And just have the best New Year's. Take care of your health. Thank you, President, no, RFK. Thank you for making America healthy. Because your health is really has a lot to do with what you're putting inside of your body. All those processed foods and fried foods and all those pesticides and chemicals is killing Americans and our children. So take care of yourself and eat well, live well. Like I'm getting ready to leave and go to the gym because I love the gym. I work out now because I have to. I don't even weigh that much, but I've always been an athlete. I work out and I love working out and just find the joy in just going out. Get some fresh air. If you don't want to get to the gym, walk. Just simply walk and stop drinking all those juices. That's just drinking sugar. Drink water so you don't get diabetes. Anyway, that's my health tip for it. That's my health. I know my son loves juice. I try to keep him from it. That's my health tip for today. Drink water. If you can't do anything else, take a day. Drink water. You can put a little flavor in or whatever, but if you're gonna use flavor, use lemon. Use real fruit. Use real lemon juice or whatever.
Come on, that strawberry lemonade you calling me.
Yeah, but it's like 40% sugar in it. And so is that Gatorade. So anyway, you guys, stay blessed. Love you. Thank you, Jack, for being on here.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's doing a good job. Yeah, RFK, he's doing a great job. I love what he's doing because the other countries, they're not poisoning their people. The other countries, they're not getting all these dyes and chemicals and stuff that they allow here in this country. And then we're paying more for prescriptions and medications than the rest of the world. So who knew? So anyway, you guys, God bless. And we'll see you on the next live. We'll probably be on here tomorrow. We're trying to be consistently coming on here. And thanks, guys. Thank you, moderators. We are going to try to get more moderators. Thanks, guys. God bless. Have a good one. Peace out. Don't forget to like.